Mark, to bring it back to you, this raises the question. I mean, really the core of what this panel, I think, should be about is what does the Republican Party have to offer African Americans that we are not correctly perceiving or correctly recognizing?
Well, it's funny. I once got an email from a reader that called me a black supremacist because I believe that black people can do anything that any other group can do. I think it's insulting, the notion that we need help, that we need a helping hand, we need affirmative action, we need all these other things because we're just at times just too damn stupid to make it on our own. I reject that. And if that makes me a black supremacist, so be it.
Who has answered the question? What does the Republican Party have to offer?
The Republican Party basically says that there are rules to everything in life. And I understand that there are going to be obstacles. That doesn't stop me from trying. I mean, 2 years ago, I wrote a letter to the editor of Men's News Daily talking about what I didn't think we should be celebrating about Black History Month. I don't think should be a celebration when you look at all the things that are going on in our community. After a couple of weeks, or a couple of days actually, he emailed me back and said, "You want to write some more?" And look at me now. I'm here talking to you. I think that black folk can do anything that they want to do. And I think the Republican Party doesn't assume that we can't do things. I mean, the message from the Democrat Party always seems, you can't do this because you're black. You'll never be able to do this because these forces are up against you. I believe that black folk can do whatever they want to do if they try and they just keep going. I mean, nothing is easy. And I admit that there is racism in this country, but why should that deter you from trying?
Thank you.
Let me just say a couple of things. First of all, black people cannot do anything that they wish. Black people can't live where they wish to live. There's documented evidence every 2 or 3 years of right here in Palo Alto, of widespread housing discrimination. Black people can't get jobs that they want to get. University of Chicago sociologists did a study. Is Brendan and Emily more employable than Lakeisha and Jamal? So they just took some jobs and took the applications, just changed the names of the applicants, identical applications, widespread employment discrimination. Black people can't get high like white people. If black people's drug of choice is one thing and white folks' drug of choice is another, black people are grossly punished for that. That's widespread discrimination at every step of the criminal justice process. The problem is the Democratic Party is not going to do anything about it. The Republican Party is not going to do anything about it. And black leadership, to make your point, has become so incorporated into the Democratic Party that it is unable to challenge either. But this notion that somehow if black people just go along and act like that they can live the same kind of life that white, that's ridiculous.
So are these students wasting their time?
Well, I tell you one thing that these students ought to know, that if you graduate from Stanford University, one of the leading universities of law in this country, you will not have the same opportunity as your white counterparts. That's just the way it is. And people live with that, I live with that. But to say that the idea that somehow if you graduate from Stanford and you look at this cohort of students 30 or 40 years from now and don't expect to find a racial disparity, there'll have to be a radical change in the way the country operates. And let me just say something here. This thing about reparations. Now, come on. I don't understand how a black person could say the debt is not owed. Here, people, think if someone came to this country and over a period of years stole Stanford and took it over to Africa, stole the best and brightest of a people, put them in the most brutal system of domination over an extended period of time we have known, set them free, so-called, and then lied about it for another 100 years and deprived them of the rights the Constitution said they had, and we are not owed a debt. When I was growing up, I could not even use the public library in my hometown. I'm owed something for that. Now, people say, well, I was on a radio program the other day. Someone said, well, if you push for it, Dr. Smith, it'll cause a white backlash. I said, well, that was a the first white backlash was against freeing the slaves. Then there was a backlash against the civil rights movement. So clearly, I'm not going to push for something that's owed me because the people who owe me may get mad with me. I want the debt paid. And I think black leaders are too timid and too weak to push for the payment of the debt. And it'll be a lot of money. Ain't no question about that. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Now, I'm sure these issues will resurface. We have some questions.
Hi, my name is Elliot Flayden. I guess I'm the resident libertarian, but at Stanford there's not many libertarians or Republicans, so I sometimes identify with them just for the sake that when you're not many of you, you have to all bond together at times. But there's a few things you said, Professor Smith, that gave me pause. I was hoping maybe you could go on a little about it. You said in your speech, two words came up, hostile and racist. And the context was, for hostile, you said that you implied that over the past, there's only been a 30-year period where one political party has not been hostile to African-American interests. And for that, I'm kind of curious today how you would think that the Republican Party is explicitly hostile to African-American interests. And the second part is with racist. You said that some of Ronald Reagan's policies were racist, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. What does it mean to you for some of his policies to be racist? What does it entail for racism?
First of all, the Republican Party is not explicitly hostile. George Bush actually ran the least racially insensitive presidential campaign since '64. But the effect of Reagan, the effect of pursuing a rigidly conservative ideology has consequences on the African American community as if one actually set about to have negative consequences. That is, for example, if you pursue a set of ostensibly racial neutral policies for a set of programs that poor people disproportionately rely on, and since black people are disproportionately poor, the consequence of that is institutionally racist, without the policymaker ever having or thinking in any kind of racially adverse way. I don't know, the period where the two parties were reasonably competitive for blacks were the period from the second election of Franklin Roosevelt unto the election of Johnson, and then the Democratic Party went one way, the Republican Party the other way.
So the way I'm interpreting your response is that if a policy is going to be on the metric that you're expecting, in the short run, harmful to a population, that policy is racist. Where I disagree with you is I think that it's really easy with government policies to look at a primary effect, but always ignore the secondary or tertiary effects, which can go in the opposite direction and might not necessarily be harmful. And also, that sometimes those secondary and tertiary effects, they can have very different effects in the long run as opposed to short run. And I think to characterize programs which in the media and demagogue-wise would be able to be easily characterized as racist, they could actually be in the long run be very beneficial. And that's where my disagreement with you lies.
I'll take your point.
Yeah, and